Greetings, fellow dungeon delvers, and welcome to Dorans and Dragons, where we work together to come up with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition builds for your favorite League of Legends champions. Today we're building Kayn, the Shadow Reaper. League's edgiest champion hails from Noxus, where he was conscripted into their army as a child soldier. Coney 2012, am I right? Kayn was abandoned in Ionia after a massacre by the Noxians. Zed, the Master of Shadows, came to investigate and found the young Kayn hiding in the mud, wielding a sickle with ferocity. Zed took Kayn in as an acolyte of the Order of Shadow, seeing a well of untapped potential. Kayn was one of the most powerful pupils the Order had ever seen, but his hubris grew right alongside his skill. He believed he was even stronger than Zed himself. His final test was to retrieve a Darken weapon found in Noxus before they could use it against Ionia. Kayn was successful, but where other acolytes would have destroyed the weapon, Kayn took it for himself. Rost, the Darken trapped within the scythe, began corrupting Kayn the second his hands wrapped around the hilt of the living weapon. Now the two are locked in an internal struggle, vying for control of Kayn's body. Before we get started with the build, go ahead and like the video and hit that subscribe button so you're always notified when we release our builds. We'd like to take a minute and thank our awesome patrons over on Patreon who support us every month. Thanks for helping us keep the lights on and the dice addiction going. One of our rewards for our patrons is monthly homebrewed content. This month's homebrew is The First Lands, based on Ionia. We released last month's homebrew, The Toxic Slums, on a DM's Guild if you're interested in seeing that. Come join us over on Patreon if you're interested in supporting the channel and getting access to some great content. Alright, now let's get into it. First, let's cover the goals of this build. We need to get our edginess on, and go all out just this once. We also need to be able to run through walls and our enemies. Finally, we need to be able to Beyblade it up with our Scythe. For race, you have your choice here between Shadow Assassin and Rost. If you want to play Rost, Tiefling will be the way to go, with a +2 to Charisma and Infernal Legacy. For this build, we're going to be going Shadow Assassin, but don't worry, we'll include Rost Knockup in here so you know how to play both. Variant humans gain a +1 to 2 ability scores. We're going to take Charisma and Dexterity. For your skill proficiency, go ahead and take Athletics for all the jumps and leaps we're going to be doing. And finally, the best thing about Variant humans is the free feat. We're going to be reaching into Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and pick up the Slasher feat. This is going to bump our dex by 1 and enhance our slashing damage. Once per turn, when you deal slashing damage to a creature, you can reduce its speed by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. This is going to be the slow from our W, Blade's Reach. Slasher also grievously wounds any creature you crit, causing it to have disadvantage on attack rolls. While writing out the script for this, I also realized you could run this build as a changeling, constantly shifting your appearance between Tiefling and Human depending on the version of Kayn you wanted to play that day. So keep that in mind. For background, we're going to go with Acolyte. Kayn is an Acolyte of the Order of Shadow, and as of now, still remains in good standing with them. Acolytes pick up skill proficiencies in Insight and Religion, as well as the Shelter of the Faithful feature. You'll receive free healing and help at any monastery or temple that follows the Order of Shadow as well. For stats, we're going to emulate the struggle for balance that Kayn and Rost have with the standard array. Roll if you want to, but we need at least 13 in our Charisma, Wisdom, and Dexterity for multi-classing shenanigans. Charisma is going to be our top stat at a 15. Rost and Kayn are an intimidating combo. One never dies, the other pops in, pops your ADC, and pops back out before you can say ADC in 2021. Dexterity is going to be next at a 14. Kayn is a deadly assassin who's trained for many years with Zed. He's going to have high initiative in combat, and this will also help with any stealth checks as we embrace the shadows. We'll take our Wisdom next for multiclassing. Zed's trying to rub off on Kayn, but Kayn's pride in his own strength stops him from listening at times. After that, we'll take our Constitution. Rost is fairly tanky, and wanted to be able to survive being in the thick of combat. Strength is going to be our average score, because he's too busy trying to be an edgelord to hit the gym. And finally, we'll dump Intelligence, because you should never pick up cursed weapons. Never ends well. Looking at you, King Arthur. Just like the man in the van with the candy, if a lady in the lake hands you a sword, you just say no, back away, call the police. Equipment-wise, we're going to be using 2 weapons here. A longsword and a halberd, which will flavor as a scythe. So why the longsword? Because before level 3 we won't be able to use our halberd to do any damage since our strength is meh at best. So we'll use a longsword until level 3, then switch to our scythe. Now we went with Halberd for the extra 5 feet of range, and because that feels like the closest we're going to get to a scythe in D&D. If you don't care about the reach though, and just want the fat deeps, then go ahead and swap out the Halberd for a greatsword and flavor it as a scythe instead. Alrighty, we're going to kick this build off with levels 1 through 7 in Warlock. Warlocks have a D8 hit die and give us proficiencies with light armor and simple weapons. We're also going to pick up skill proficiencies in deception and intimidation, like a good ninja assassin. First level Warlocks come to bargain with the patron they're going to derive their powers from. We're going to embrace the power Ross grants us with the Hexblade. This is going to give us a few important features. Hex Warrior is going to give us our martial weapon proficiency, so we can actually use our longsword, and it'll let us use our charisma mod for attack and damage rolls. Hex Warrior won't work with any two-handed weapons until 3rd level, which is why we need to use our longsword for now. We're going to pick up both Darkened Scythe passives with Hexblade's Curse. Hexblade's Curse is a feature that recharges once per rest, but lets you curse a target for 1 minute with no save. While the curse is up, you deal bonus damage equal to your proficiency bonus. You crit on 19s and 20s on this creature, and if the target dies, you gain your Warlock level plus your Charisma mod and health back. Shadow Assassin Darkened Scythe is the extra damage, Ross Darkened Scythe is the heal on kill. Feels nice to get both. The final relevant level 1 feature is going to be the spell Hex, which is going to be similar to Hexblade's Curse. These are both going to mark our target as well for our ultimate ability, which we'll pick up later. You can cast Hex as a bonus action on a creature within range, and if that creature dies, you can use your next turn's bonus action to cast it on another creature in range as well. While cursed, a creature takes an extra 1d6 necrotic damage from any attack you make, and you can force disadvantage on ability checks for 1 ability. Remember, Hex isn't just an offensive combat ability. The roleplay potential for Hex is pretty strong as well. One of my players hexed a guard's wisdom, while another tried to schmooze their way into a meeting with a mayor. The guard had no chance, and in the party went, to convince the mayor to rename the town after their fallen goblin friend. 2nd level Warlocks get their Eldritch Invocations. These are basically super powerful passive abilities or spells granted that offset the negatives of the packed spell slot system. We're going to get 2 at level 2, and the additional ones at levels 5, 7, and 9. Fiendish Vigor is going to give us the False Life spell for a little bit of Ross healing. It gives us 1d4 plus 4 temporary hit points for an hour. Improved Pack Weapon is next, but we'll need Pact of the Blade to get it, so this will have to wait until level 3. But what it does is give your Packed Weapon plus 1 to attack and damage rolls unless it already has that bonus, and we'll be able to use our weapon as a spellcasting focus. Once we have this, we can pick up a cool version of our Q, Reaping Slash, with the cantrip Sword Burst. This lets you create spectral blades that sweep around you and force a dex save on all creatures within 5 feet. It deals 1d6 force damage to each, scaling with level like all cantrips do. I would just ask your DM to flavor this as you sweeping your scythe through them all in a twirl. Back to Eldritch Invocations. Next we'll grab Thirsting Blade at level 5, which is going to let us attack twice instead of once with our big honkin' scythe. At level 7 we pick up Relentless Hex. Now any target hit with Hexblade's Curse or Hex is considered marked by us. As long as we can see our marked target, we can use a bonus action to teleport up to 30 feet as long as it puts us within 5 feet of the target. This is going to be our ultimate Umbral Trespass. Now we're not going to be able to actually dash inside them unfortunately, but that's going to be the only part missing as we teleport to them and then pop them for a ton of damage with our scythe. The final invocation we're going to pick up is Eldritch Smite. Once per turn, when you land a hit with your packed weapon, you can spend a spell slot to slap down an extra d8 force damage to the target and knock it prone. No save. Warlocks are super front loaded, so things are definitely going to chill out now. At 3rd level, we'll pick up our packed boon. Papa Ross is so proud of us, he's going to give us a treat. As we brought up before, we're going with Pact of the Blade. This is going to let us transform our scythe into a packed weapon, which lets us do a few cool things with it, like using Charisma for attack and damage rolls thanks to Hex Warrior, and you can dismiss it to an extra dimensional space, then call it back to your hand as an action. 4th level Warlocks pick up an ability score improvement. We're going to get some more damage from our scythe with a Great Weapon Master feat. This is going to allow us to get a little risky and take a -5 to our attack roll to add 10 additional damage to that attack. Remember, if you have advantage on the attack, then mathematically this is free damage, so keep that in mind. It also gives you a free attack as a bonus action if you crit or kill a creature during your turn. Warlock levels 5 and 7 unlock the Thirsting Blade and Relentless Hex Eldritch Invocations, which we already covered. And the 6th level Hexblade feature isn't really relevant to Kayn, so we're going to skip that as well. Alrighty, so to catch us up, we have our passive Q, the slow on our W, and our R. We're going to pick up an additional way to do our Q and the knock up, or rather knock down on our W with 3 levels in Fighter. Fighters have a D10 hit die and give us no new proficiencies. We get to choose a fighting style to focus on. We're going to eliminate those depressing 1s and 2s on our scythe damage rolls with great weapon fighting. Anytime you roll a 1 or 2 on your damage roll, you can re-roll the dice once. But if your luck is anything like mine, you're likely going to end up rolling a 1 again anyways, but hey, worth a shot, right? Our final level 1 feature is going to be Second Wind, which lets you heal 1d10 plus your fighter level once per rest as a bonus action. Feel free to use that as the heal you get from Rost's ultimate. Second level fighters get one of the best features in the game, Action Surge. As I'm sure you know by now, this will let you get some great combos in by allowing you to take an additional action on your turn once per rest. Level 3 fighters choose their martial archetype. We're going to hit up an old stable with the Battlemaster Fighter. Battlemaster fighters get a pool of combat superiority die that empower maneuvers to enhance their combat capabilities. The pool starts as 4d8s. We're going to pick up 2 maneuvers of importance here. When we land a hit on a creature and use sweeping attack, we can hit another creature within 5 feet as long as the same attack would have scored a hit on them as well. They take damage equal to whatever you roll in the superiority die. With Action Surge, we'll be able to land a total of 8 strikes, 4 normal attacks and 4 sweeping attacks, which should more than completely cover our Q. When we land a hit on a creature and use trip attack, we can force a strength save on it that knocks it prone if it fails. Again, with Action Surge, we'll be able to hit 4 creatures with this trip attack, which covers the knock up or knock down from Rost's W. Alrighty, we've gotten everything now. Everything except our E. Time to head through 7 levels of Ranger to pick it up. Rangers have a D10 hit die and give us proficiency in Stealth, which is going to be nice for a Shadow Assassin. Now, normally I dump on the Ranger's level 1 features because I very much dislike them. But in Tasha's, they actually got a nice little rework. Deft Explorer is going to give us expertise in stealth, and at level 6 it'll bump our walking speed by 5 feet, and make our swimming and climbing speed equal to our walking speed. Favored Foe is going to let us mark any creature we hit for a minute. The first time on each of our turns that we hit that creature, it deals an additional 1d4 damage. This will scale up to 1d6 by the time we're done with it. Luckily, the number of charges for this feature is based on proficiency bonus, so we're not punished as much for multiclassing. Second level Rangers choose a fighting style. Feel free to choose here. None of them are great since Kayn doesn't wear armor and we have great weapon fighting from Fighter already. We'll pick up Zephyr Strike here as a way to utilize our Ranger spell slots. This lets you grant yourself advantage on 1 attack roll. If you hit, you deal an extra 1d8 force damage, and either hit or miss, your speed increases by 30 feet until the end of that turn. Remember, this gives you advantage, so throw in Great Weapon Master for 10 free damage. Level 3 Rangers choose their Ranger archetype. We're going to go with the Horizon Walker to get our Shadow Step in a bit. The only Kayn relevant feature here is going to be Planar Warrior. As a bonus action, you can choose a creature within range. The next hit you make on that creature deals all of its damage as force damage, and you add an additional 1d8 force damage on top of that. The 4th level Rangers pick up another ability score improvement. We're done with feats for now, so we'll start making our stuff hit harder with 2 more points in Charisma. 5th level Ranger gets extra attack, which we already have, and the 6th level Ranger gets improvements to Deft Explorer and Favored Foe as mentioned before, so we'll skip to our final level in Ranger and pick up Ethereal Step. This is going to be our E, Shadow Step. As a bonus action, you can cast the Etherealness spell for free once per rest, but it ends at the end of your turn. Etherealness allows you to enter the ethereal plane and see the world as a dull gray, and gain the ability to walk through all objects, including walls. Remember, don't actually try to end the spell in something, or you'll be expelled from it and take force damage equal to twice the distance you traveled in feet. Alrighty, now that we've gotten our E, we're going to come back for Warlock levels 8 through 10 to round off the build. 8th level Warlocks gain another ability score improvement. We're going to max out our Charisma with 2 more points. We covered the level 9 Eldritch Invocation, and the 10th level Hexblade feature is Armor of Hexes, which isn't really Kayn relevant. Alright, now that we've completed the build, let's do a quick recap. The race is going to be Variant Human for Shadow Assassin Kayn, Tiefling for Rost. Stats are 15 in Charisma, 14 in Dex, 13 in Wisdom, Con at a 12, Strength at 10, and Dump Int at 8. Our leveling path is going to be 1 through 7 in Warlock, 1 through 3 in Fighter, 1 through 7 in Ranger, and then 8 through 10 in Warlock. Kayn's passive comes from Hexblade's Curse. His Q comes from either Sweeping Attack or Sword Burst. Our W is achieved through both the Slasher feat and Trip Attack. We get our E through Ethereal Step, and finally, we get our ultimate from Relentless Hex. So, what'd you think? I've included a link to this build via D&D Beyond in the description below, as well as Amazon links to the books used in this build. We tried trimming down for this new format, and somehow it ended up just as long. Feel free to comment on some things you think we over-explain and places we could trim some of the bloat. If you enjoy this type of content, please consider supporting us on Patreon. We have a few awesome rewards, including access to our awesome Discord community and monthly homebrew releases. We plan on turning out one League Champion build every week. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll catch you on the Rift, or in the Forgotten Realms.